Good morning, Leonard. Here is this watch, your father's watch. This was a lot of fun. This was a lot of fun to do. I hope you remember what it looked like before. I have a link up in the email that I sent you for the first video that I made, so you can sort of get a refresher for what it used to look like. The light in here is not the best, but hopefully you're able to see what it looks like now. The watch was deeply challenged. As I said in my email, it had 3 factors against it. 1, it had been worn a lot, and so it had a lot of internal wear. 2, it had been worn with bad seals, and so a lot of water got in, and it did various kinds of damage to different things. And the third thing is that it had been worked on previously by somebody who wasn't very careful and didn't do particularly good work, and so I had to sort of help correct those problems. Hang on just one second. Sorry, I didn't have one of my visual aids out. Okay, so your watch had a bunch of problems. Primarily, one of the first big issues was this. This is your main plate, and the main plate was super rough. This is the lower arbor port. This is where the mainspring sits. The mainspring sits right here. This was terribly worn. Which in combination with your destroyed mainspring barrel complete meant that you can see, I don't know if you can see the wear right here. The whole mainspring was tipping over and grinding into the main plate. Also, this jewel for the center wheel is cracked. Also, water got in, and there is a whole bunch of corrosion around here. Basically, it was just simpler to just replace that plate. Corrosion is not your friend. These are some of the parts that were destroyed with water that got in through the crown, I believe. That's the spring combination. There's the click spring combination. Those are nested together, and those were both bad. Another part in that side of the movement, that is for your date wheel. That's the spring for the date wheel, and that is all worn here. Crazy wear, actually. It's really unusual. Other things that were bad from corrosion. This is your winding weight. See all the pitting in here? So, I mean, I could have tried to clear that up, but honestly, it's better just to replace it, because when this metal starts to degrade, it just kind of doesn't stop. One of the things you talked about was the day date not resetting. The day date not resetting was because the crown and stem were both incorrect. The stem was too short, the crown was wrong for the case. And so it's funny, you can see there's all kinds of damage inside the crown here from somebody viciously trying to push the crown in enough to get the day date quick set to work, but we don't have to worry about that anymore. Your mainspring was really worked. It was still together, but it was really worked. So this is the inside of the barrel. Look at the damage inside this barrel. And if you look at the mainspring, it's supposed to be a nice, even, steady, nice coil. And look, it's all stretched out and worked out, and it's tweaked here. That's bad. Your handset, these are supposed to have a black stripe down the middle. You can see some of the remains of it right there. But the hands themselves were so worn, and that not only was the paint gone, but actually the apertures are too big, and so the hands were flopping around, and especially the hour hand was actually drifting up against the dial, so it was making sort of a streak on the top of the dial as it turned. These were all garbage. This hand was okay. It was just loose, and it was terribly faded. Terribly faded. So I wanted to redo that. Some classic things that are worn. This is your cannon pinion. It wasn't holding at all. This communicates power from the back of the movement through to the front, and this powers the calendar, like the hands and all that stuff. Some parts were simply missing. This isn't yours because you didn't have one. This is the second setting lever for 6106. You didn't have one at all, so I had to install one. This is another one. So, but your 6106 was not hacking because the lever was gone. I have no earthly reason understanding why the lever would be gone, but you now have one in there. I didn't do any casework. I did clean it religiously, and so the case is just extremely clean, just as clean as I can make it. There's that new crown, by the way. See the new crown? Everything is just as clean as I possibly can make it. The dial surface was weakened in terms of the paint. Weakened so much so that, in fact, I had to do a very light, protective satin clear coat on the top of the dial. You can't see it. There's no way for you to know that it's there. The only way that you know that it's there is that your dial looks a lot better. And this printing is now protected, whereas before it was weakened. The corrosion and the water intrusion was just terrible. The lume on the top of these markers had just turned black, and it was eating into everything. The person who had also done uncareful work inside had done less than careful work outside. They had sort of blobbily glued this date window in place. So I removed that, and I did my best to clean up the glue on the dial surface without doing any additional damage, and then re-gluing this down with decent adhesive. The person also, one of your two dial feet is missing. Underneath your dial, there are two dial feet. One is right here, or it would be if it wasn't missing, because it's missing. So the person, though, in order to deal with this, there's a ring that supports this dial. They had just put tons of some kind of crazy brown glue all underneath the dial to glue the dial down, which is not the way that you do it. You use a two-sided flexible adhesive strip, tiny amounts of it, smaller than a flake of pepper, just to hold the dial in place. And that's what I did, but it took some time for me to clean that, and it was really rough. This is your original rotating ring with the new insert that you sent. I had originally wanted to install this original ring, but this is actually, I was silly. I didn't think. This ring is actually for a much earlier model that is a spring retention system, whereas this is the rubber O-ring retention system. So this is your original O-ring with the aftermarket insert in place. Let's do one last thing. And of course, the hands, which I chose out of my stock, are original and reloomed to match. And so I really wanted your watch to look right. I don't think I can get it to resolve. You can see the glowing. In the dark, it will glow a lot. And this is a new sweep hand. So I really wanted this all to match and to look right, so you could see the bright blue and the gray to match the marker indices here, the bright blue in contrast to the orange, the correct black stripe hands reloomed to match the dial. The movement came out really well. One thing that that person did do that was pretty cool is that your train bridge was actually fully jeweled, which is great. Normally, they would only have one jewel in them and two bushings, but now the train is completely jeweled. That's a great thing. It's really good. It means better accuracy. It means the watch is just better. Anyway, so this is your father's watch. I put a lot of work into this. I hope you enjoyed it. It was lots of fun to bring this back. Enjoy this Rally Diver. I hope it gives you many years of service. Thank you so much, Leonard.